Hey yo, what up? It's your boy. Look, we've been in the pandemic for quite a while now. It has been a rough couple of years, but I don't think anyone has had it as rough as Japan has right now. And I would know. I've been here during most of this pandemic era, and I can say for absolute certainty, and I think anyone can say with absolute certainty, Japan is really in the dire straits right now. Economically speaking, we are pretty much screwed. And the pandemic is certainly to blame. The pandemic definitely destroyed a lot of economies. A lot of countries were really struggling, and a lot of people were really struggling, and just dying and stuff like that. But it seems for the most part, as of me recording this video right now, August 2022. For the most part, I can safely say that I guess the rest of the world has pretty much started to go back to normal. The same thing, unfortunately, cannot exactly be said about Japan. So let's start off with one of the biggest issues right now, and that is the economic issues that Japan is going through right now. Starting off with this article from May of this year stating, Kyoto, Japan's beautiful old imperial capital, is going broke. Yes, it is insane to think, but the words Kyoto going bankrupt was a massive thing that was going around here on the Japanese Twitter sphere. And it was really kind of hard to believe that an entire city or town, and not to mention the most tourist-centered city and town that has always been this kind of flourishing thing for as long as I have known about how much of a tourist trap Kyoto is, to think that now they are going bankrupt. The glorious ancient monuments, Zen temples, and soaring pagodas of Kyoto have made it a major tourist draw for a century. The Japanese city's population is only about 1.5 million, yet it boasts 17 individual UNESCO World Heritage Sites. But Kyoto's treasure trove of priceless artifacts belie a painful reality that Japan's magnificent imperial capital city is running on empty. Japan's continuing ban on tourists amid the coronavirus pandemic has hit Kyoto especially hard. The city helped to draw a whopping 31 million visitors to Japan in 2019 alone, but tourism has now dwindled to a trickle of mostly domestic visitors. Japan's overall inbound tourism plunged to about 250,000 people last year, the lowest since record keeping began in 1964. Let me just throw that in again because that's important. It's the lowest that it has ever been in almost 60 years, which is just fucking crazy to me. Because the general Japanese person's view of Kyoto is, yes, all of its traditionalist stuff and, beautiful temples, just is obscene and wonderful scenery and just buildings and just the history that you can feel from it. And the other thing that I immediately think of when I think of Kyoto is just shoulder-to-shoulder people. No matter what time of the year you go, no matter what time of the day you go, Kyoto is just fucking packed with people. As someone who did go to Kyoto during 2020 and 2021 and seeing just how desolate it was, just really goes to show how dependent Kyoto especially, and not just Kyoto, but a lot of the more touristy places in Japan, like Osaka and even a lot of parts of Tokyo, just how dependent they were on foreign tourists and even domestic tourism. And look, as it says here in this article as well, and I'm not going to go through the entire article because you can just read it in detail, links in the description to every single article I post about on this channel. It's not just the tourism that's really like making Kyoto struggle. Just some of the infrastructure that they've built in Kyoto, such as the fucking Tozai line, which is a massive investment of a train line, which just isn't really panning out. Not to mention the insane and lavish refurbishments of the city hall, which, I kind of get, I guess, because it is a very visually stunning place, Kyoto. But, for something like a city hall, that isn't exactly a building that, international tourists are just salivating at the mouth to go and visit. Like, goddamn, I can't wait to go visit the Kyoto City Hall. And now it's even gotten to the point where local residents of Kyoto are really struggling, not just because of the drop in tourism, but just the poor money management of the Kyoto prefecture government. And here's the thing that kind of like annoyed me about it, is the fact that, as it says here, the old imperial capital's budget woes are so baked in that Hiroyuki Mori, an expert in local public finance at Ritsumeikan University, told YTV News that even an increase in tourists would not offset the red ink. But here's the thing. Look, I'm no fucking budget specialist or anything like that. I don't know shit about this kind of stuff. But one thing I can tell you is that it would certainly freaking help if you started letting people in again. Because, again, I was overseas to the UK and US and Australia over the past couple of months, and let me tell you, the rest of the world is pretty much back to normal. Yes, the pandemic is still going around and people are still health conscious and people are, still trying to make sure to not get sick. But at the end of the day, something's going to give. As a society, you've got to start moving on. If you don't want your entire country to come to a fucking collapse, like Japan kind of is right now, because Japan, again, is one of those few countries right now that is still really, really difficult for non-residents and just international tourists to come into because of all of the regulations and just how asinine and time-consuming it is to actually properly try and get into the country. I think I speak on behalf of all of you guys watching this video who are just dying for the Japanese to just open up their borders again so that you can go and visit all of your favorite Japanese and weeb places, right? And I feel for you guys, honestly and truly, I do, because I have a lot of friends as well. I have a lot of personal friends and family who are also in that same boat. And when I say they're ridiculous, I really mean they're ridiculous. Like, to the point where my own father, who is, connected to me by blood, still cannot come into the country without me issuing a visa to him. Like, it's stupid. It's actually stupid. Now, you might be thinking, since this is an article dating all the way back in May of this year, that, maybe Japan has gotten a little bit more lax since then. It's been almost 3 months now since Kyoto has almost filed for bankruptcy. Maybe they're kind of back to normal. No. Here is another article from NHK World Japan that just came out yesterday as of me recording this video that says only 8,000 foreign tourists visited Japan in June and July. 8,000 in 2 months. And mind you, and let me read this verbatim, the country eased its anti-coronavirus border controls and reopened to foreign holidaymakers on June the 10th for the first time in about 2 years, but the number of arrivals is capped at 20,000 per day. And yet, even though they said that they have eased the border controls, only 8,000 tourists visited in 2 months. And this is not the fault of, people just aren't interested in coming to Japan, or, Japan is being really strict and everything like that. There's a number of issues, right? Because when Japan says that they eased their border control, they didn't, because with anything Japanese, there is always a catch. Tourists from 102 countries and territories, including the United States, South Korea, and China, are allowed to come, but only in tour groups. The Japan Tourism Agency that 8,500 foreign tourists have applied to arrive between last Friday and August the 31st, and officials say that one possible reason for the low number of foreign holidaymakers is that China still restricts overseas travel by its citizens, which, yes, I'm sure is the case, okay? A lot of Chinese people do come and visit Japan. A lot of Chinese people just love to come and visit every country that isn't China, right? Because Chinese tourists are a big market for a lot of big places, and I think, you don't have to be a foreign tourism expert to know that any country you go to, more likely than not, is full of Chinese tourists. But it's also a good thing, because to a lot of those countries, those Chinese tourists especially, make that country's tourism a lot of money. But the second possible reason, which they actually nailed on the head, says that they also cite the time-consuming process needed to travel to Japan, as all tourists are required to obtain a visa and show a negative PCR test result. And that, I think, is definitely more so the case than the Chinese tourists, because China, yes, although does make up for a large amount of tourism money, especially in Japan, there are a lot of other countries and nationalities out there who are dying to come to Japan, because the interest in coming to Japan, I feel, has only peaked since the coronavirus. And trust me, when they say in this article that the process of getting into Japan is time consuming, it truly is fucking time consuming. Even as someone who has a Japanese citizenship and a passport such as myself, it still still took me way too goddamn long to get back into the country. And then Japan sits back and wonders, oh shit, why is our economy going to absolute shit? I don't know, maybe it's because you're making it like a level 99 dungeon worth of difficulty to get into the goddamn country. And look, I get it from the Japanese side of things, all right? I get that they want to be safe, right? They don't want to bring potential threats when it comes to people who have the virus to come to Japan and stuff like that, and they really are just trying to self-contain the virus to make sure all of their nationals are at least safe. But, you look at any article about the recent spike of, like, coronavirus cases here in Japan, where it's like, I think at one point we were getting like 200,000 new cases a day. Clearly, it's got nothing to do with the tourism. It's just got to do with the fact that even people in Japan now are getting fucking sick of this shit, and they just want things to go back to normal. And then the other thing that they say here is, European and US travelers prefer to travel individually as opposed to joining group tours. I don't think it's just got to do with European and US travelers. I think most, if not all tourists, maybe except for the Chinese tourists who do tend to go on more of those group tours and stuff like that, I think every other type of nationality doesn't really want to experience Japan that way, because I think the general consensus is that trying to experience Japan through group tours is probably the worst way to experience Japan. Because I have said this on multiple occasions, and a lot of YouTubers living in Japan and who love Japan have said this on multiple occasions, but the best way to experience Japan and to get the true Japanese experience as a tourist is to just go in there with absolutely no plans, or at least the bare minimum of plans. But the best way to explore Japan, and especially in big walkable cities like Kyoto, like Osaka, like Tokyo, which is where most, if not all, tourists are going to go for the first time they go to Japan, the best way is to just go out there and just walk around and find out for yourself, because all of those cities and a lot of Japan is safe enough and tight-knit enough where you can afford to do that, where you can just go and walk out and find all sorts of cool things. And I've always said, and I've heard from people, that those are the best ways to experience Japan. And so the last thing a lot of especially European and US travelers, according to this article, want to do is to be stuck in these group tours. And I get it. Look, if it's the first time you're visiting Japan, or it's the first time you're going overseas to go travel, and you're not exactly used to traveling and stuff like that, I get if you want to play it safe and have a group tour. But that isn't the case for the majority of the people who want to come to Japan, let alone for all the people who want to just come and visit Japan again for the second time and more. A group tour is the last thing you want to experience. And then it says here, although the country is in the middle of the 7th wave of infections, the tourism industry is hoping that a weaker yen will encourage more foreign tourists to visit Japan. And yes, it is. But if you're, again, going to make it near impossible for tourism to just happen in Japan without these stupid visa requirements and all of these like super difficult and time-consuming processes to just come into the country, then it doesn't matter how weak the yen is. People aren't going to be bothered to go. And I think that's the one thing that Japan is just not realizing right now, is that like you can throw the blame at all sorts of different factors about the world, like, oh, the yen is struggling right now, or oh, Kyoto is going bankrupt because they built this massive city hall. Like, yes, that is certainly a bunch of issues that Japan needs to sort out on their own accord, but that is merely the tip of the iceberg. That at the end of the day, if they just let go and maybe realize the fact that we probably have to live with the coronavirus for the rest of our lives, or the rest of humanity, just like the common cold, or just like influenza, or all of these like illnesses that we supposedly haven't really figured out the cures to eradicate entirely, but we just kind of have to live with it. Because in my opinion, I feel that's what the coronavirus is going to be. It's just going to be like the common cold or influenza, where we're just going to have to live with it for the rest of our lives. And I think the majority of the world now is starting to realize that, and that's why it's become just so much easier for tourists and just people in general to go and visit these countries. Like, when I went to go visit the UK and the US, now, as long as you have like the right visa, like the visitor's visa, you don't need a PCR test. You don't even need to wear a mask at the airport anymore. And look, a lot of people, Japanese people especially, might be looking at that and going, oh yeah, but wouldn't that just put you more at risk of getting the coronavirus? Well, yes, but also no, because I mean, if this 7th wave of infections has shown anything, is that anywhere and everywhere is a risk of getting the coronavirus. The only place where you are 100% not at risk of getting the virus in this day and age is to just never go outside and never meet people, which, you know, to the common folk who have jobs and who want to go and visit is not really a fucking priority or an issue. So yeah, you know, overall I can bitch and whine and complain all I want about it, but at the end of the day, if the Japanese government doesn't want to open things up, and if the Japanese general population just doesn't really want to accommodate to tourists, even at the expense of their own economy, then so be it. But I know for a fact this cannot last, and that's why people for the longest time, especially this year, have just been really hopeful in being like, they got to start opening up the border soon, right? Soon, any time now, because as long as you actually ease the border control, and I don't mean like ease in the way that they currently have right now with these group tours and bullshit like that 99% of Japanese tourists don't give a fuck about. Like, actually ease it to the point where you don't need a negative PCR test, you don't need to apply for a special visa, just use a regular ESTA or a regular visitor's visa like you did before the pandemic began. And I get it, if you want to keep a mask mandate for people who are visiting Japan, or just Japanese people in general, because I mean, look, masks have always been around in Japan, but even before the coronavirus, so if you want to hold on to that for tourists and stuff like that, I'm sure that's fine. I'm sure the tourists will oblige. But if you don't let them in to begin with, and don't let them spend money and be a tourist in Japan to hopefully make the economy a little bit better, then we're back to square one. It's just a catch-22. We're never going to actually get to the root of the problem. And look, as amazing as it is for someone like me who is living in Japan and is a Japanese national and who can just go to Kyoto and experience Kyoto without, you know, running into 99.9% of tourists, it's a great experience. Don't get me wrong. It was a mind-boggling experience going to Kyoto with no one there, and it was fucking great. But at the same time, I also want my friends to come to Japan. That was my 2 cents on that. Let me know down in the comments below what you think. And hey, I guess, I don't know, leave in the comments below what month or year or decade you think that Japan will actually open up its borders and actually ease its borders. Let's make some bold predictions in the comments. My bold prediction is that, well, originally my bold prediction was August, but since we are currently in August right now and it hasn't happened, I guess I lost the bet on that one. But I'd like to think that by the end of this year or early next year, like December or January, I'm hoping that they'll finally pull their head out their asses and realize, yeah, we should probably start letting people in, because otherwise our society is literally going to crumble. So let me know your thoughts and predictions down in the comments below. And hey, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to smack my face right here to subscribe to the channel. Let's keep making that big channel number go bigger. Over here next to my head, there's a couple more videos you can check out as well if you enjoyed this one. And anything you want me to talk about in future videos like this, let me know down in the comments, or follow your boy on socials. Links are in the description below. But thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.